This whole time, my mother was telling me how bad my father is, but in reality, she was doing nothing but lying to me. She would call me fat and all sorts of other names, and then one day, I finally got the courage. I found my father, and I told him everything.
I've always been a bit on the chubby side, but when I got to high school, I put on a lot of weight. When I was a freshman in high school, my mother, who's never been happy about my size, took me to the doctor. And after sitting in his office for around 20 minutes, he said I just need to lose weight. Since then, my mom has put me on a super rigorous diet. No sugars, no carbs, no red meat. Most of what I eat is just a plain salad with a little bit of lemon and salt. Maybe a little sprinkle of some small slice of salmon, if I'm lucky. She makes me exercise twice per day. This is on top of doing my chores and keeping up with schoolwork. I'm just tired all the time. I've started getting regular migraines, and I feel like I'm starving to death, half the time. My hair is even thinning in the front, and I'm not getting my period as often as I should. I kept telling my mother about these things, and she wasn't listening. She kept insisting that I must lose weight. I've barely lost any so far, and she's not happy about it. She keeps accusing me of sneaking snacks from the kitchen or not sticking to my diet while I'm at school. One time, we were at a birthday party for my cousin, and because there's no healthy food here, my mother picked me up dinner. So while everyone was enjoying their nice little barbecue, I was munching on a side salad. My aunt felt sorry for me and tried to sneak me a small piece of brisket, but my mom caught her and absolutely freaked out, screaming at my aunt, saying she was enabling my bad habits and that her kids were all fat and lazy because she spoiled them with brisket. It was so embarrassing, but it wasn't just family there. You see, my cousin's friends and my aunts and uncles' friends, they were all at the party too. And she pretty much just ruined the mood with her unhinged ranting. My aunt kicked us out of the party, and by us, I do mean my mother. I was a bit of collateral damage on the side, but on the way back home, my mom went on and on about how my aunt was a terrible parent, saying she married rich so she would not have to work, how she's always lazy, blah blah blah. She yelled at me for not saying no when my aunt offered me the brisket, and said it was obvious how I was cheating on my diet. She said I could not go to my aunt's house or hang out with my cousins anymore. Since then, I haven't seen much of my extended family because she refuses to apologize for making a scene at the party. It's been lonely, and I miss my cousins. They were really the only other family I had besides my mother. My aunt texted me and apologized for not sticking up for me. She said my mother has always been controlling and she's just tired of putting up with her behavior. She said she would not be surprised if my father actually left her because she was an absolute control freak. The only thing I know about my dad is what my mom told me. He was up and left before I was born because he wasn't ready to be a father. My aunt wished me well and hoped I would get better soon. The problem is, I wasn't getting any better. I'd been dieting for almost a year and my period was almost non-existent. My hair loss got so bad that I started wearing clip-ins to cover up my bald spot. I was begging my mother to take me back to the doctor. She said no. She truly and honestly believed if I threw off a bunch of weight, all my other symptoms would just magically cure. I can't complain to her about anything. Do I get a headache? Do you need to lose more weight? Does my stomach ache? Oh, just lose more weight. Acne? Oh, stop cheating on your diet so you can lose more weight and get better. She makes me go through these weird experimental weight loss treatments that she finds online. I'm talking pills, teas, diets, you name it, none of it works. She constantly is scolding me and makes me feel like a failure for not losing enough weight. She hovers over me every morning and every evening when I weigh myself and just yells at me if the number has gone down. She tells me I'll end up dying of a heart attack or dying of a stroke, And she's just trying to look out for me because nobody else will, she says. Anyone who tries to tell her she's being too hard on me gets screamed at. With her, it's either yelling or trying to make me feel guilty by saying she's trying her best and it's hard being a parent by herself. She just started me on another new diet, the second one this month. She makes these weird concoctions with fruit and some kind of protein powder, and it makes me feel nauseous for hours. And of course, when I complain, she lectures me. She keeps telling me she's just making sure I can't take care of myself once I'm an adult on my own, and that I need to build good habits. Well, even before I put on a lot of weight, I never used to eat a lot of junk, because my mom always cooked. The most we do is order pizza every once in a while. The diet and exercise stuff were starting to affect my social life. I don't have much time for friends because 2 hours of after-school time were spent in the gym. My grades were suffering. I could hardly focus in school, so I just decided to deal with this myself. I snuck into my mother's room and got my medical records and set up an appointment. I even had to skip school because it was the only time my mother was not hovering over my shoulders. And, by the way, taking the bus to the clinic too, which wasn't too far away, and I still ended up spending most of the school day there because the wait was so darn long. The doctor was really nice and listened to my concerns. She gave me a physical and told me I was showing all signs and symptoms of PCOS. But she wanted to take some blood and do an ultrasound just to be sure. But she wasn't comfortable doing it unless I had a parent present. That's when I broke down crying and told her everything about how my mom was treating me. I told her how I'd skip school just to come see her because I was so miserable and my mother wasn't listening to or believing anything I said. She was very understanding and told me to go home, have a talk with my mom. She also gave me a write-up from my physical to take with me, a pamphlet on PCOS, and her office number so we could call if we had any questions. She did agree that the way my mom was treating me, it was hurting me more than it was helping, that's for sure. She also asked me about my father. I explained that he left before I was born, and she showed me his name on my birth records. This came as a giant shock because my mother told me she never saw him again after he left. And then he made it clear that he didn't want anything to do with us. I never even knew this man's name, and I'm sure I would have remembered. He has a very unique name. I left the clinic and made it back to school half an hour before the last bell, so I just waited outside. When my mother picked me up, we went straight to the gym, and I asked her if we could talk later. She said whatever, but in a way where I knew she wasn't even listening. After dinner that night, I got the printout and pamphlet, and I told my mother what I've done. While I was explaining everything, she sat there quietly, staring at the things the doctor had given me. When I was done, she absolutely just blew up on me. She tore up the pamphlet and write-up doctors that he gave me and started to yell so loudly. One of the neighbors came over to check on us. She said she could not believe I'd go behind her back and skip school. That I was just lazy and wanted an excuse to stay fat and gross. So I found a doctor who'd tell me what I wanted to hear. At that point, I was sobbing because I thought I'd finally found out the reason I wasn't getting any better, and she just wouldn't even listen. She didn't care how miserable all my symptoms were making me. She didn't. She was obsessed with forcing me to lose the weight, and I've been grounded for a week now. When Mom drops me off at school, she stays until I get inside, and I find her waiting for me. Well, when I get out, there she is. I'm not allowed to go anywhere on the weekends, which includes visiting family. She took away my laptop and phone, but I still have my tablet. I guess she forgot about that. One thing that I've been doing while I'm grounded is looking for my father. Stacy, my best friend from school, helped me out, and we found his Facebook profile even. This was the first time ever seeing him, at least that I remembered. He lives in the next city over and works in IT. I've been debating contacting him, both because I do want to meet him, And because I suspect my mother might just be lying about why he really left. If he didn't want anything to do with us, why would he sign my birth certificate? If I do contact him, it would have been in secret, trust me, because this would set my mother off even more than going to the doctor. I also have a tiny bit of hope that maybe he could help me, just maybe. I really want to get a proper diagnosis and hopefully treatment because I can't keep living like this. I'm jealous of all the other people in my year. They've got to hang out with their friends, go to the games and concerts, and participate in clubbing. My whole high school life has been about losing weight and nothing else. I'm miserable. What's up, everyone? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having a great day. There's a few updates for this video. It's an intense story starting out with the mom just being absolutely ridiculous. Well, let's go ahead and jump into update 1, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, just take a second and click that button. Here's update number 1. Hey guys, it's been 3 weeks since I've last updated, and well, I've been grounded. But so much has happened since, and I don't even know where to start. 2 weeks ago, I got in contact with my dad. I made a fake Facebook profile and sent him a message, and I don't know if he was or wasn't in contact with my mom, so I was prepared for this to absolutely blow up in my face. At first, he did not believe it was me, and to be honest, I wasn't really sure if it was him either. We exchanged evidence, and he sent a picture of my birth certificate. I could not believe that he had a copy, along with his driver's license for proof. So I sent a picture of myself in the day's newspaper and said it was good to finally meet him. He said he's very confused and asked if we could have a long conversation after he got off of work. Well, I thought maybe I was a bit too overexcited at first, and remembered my mother telling me he did not want to be a dad. So when he messaged me later that evening, I apologized and said, "Sorry, I'm nervous," since this was our first time talking. He said it was not in fact our first time talking, and he showed me a long text message thread with us talking. Well, I, or someone who was pretending to be me, was sending him pictures of myself at school events, family gatherings, you name it. There were messages where he wished me happy birthday, or wished me good luck on my finals. Well, I told him that was never me. Then I did not even know his name until recently, and he said he got my number from my mother. After taking a moment to process all of this, I realized my mom was pretending to be me. That's right, she was pretending to be me. She would be only with the access to those pictures, and my father told me he'd been suspicious for a while. But he didn't want to say or do anything that would upset my mom because she could be so spiteful. He asked on many occasions if we could meet up, but I, aka my mother, would blow him off with excuses of homework or studying or after-school activities. One time, he wanted to take me to his family's cabin for the summer, but I had summer camp apparently. I've never even been to summer camp, not a day in my life. I'm not in any other after-school programs or clubs or groups or anything because I simply don't have time. But that wasn't the only thing she was lying about. Oh no, my father did not leave me because he wasn't ready to be a father. He left because my mom was cheating. This happened before she knew that she was pregnant, and he wasn't even sure if I was his kid. He said they got back together briefly after she found out that indeed she was pregnant. The other guy ditched her. He supported her, though, through the pregnancy and was even there at the hospital when I was born. What actually happened was she kept talking about marriage, and he said he wasn't comfortable marrying her after everything that she did. He was only there because he didn't want me to suffer because of her mistakes. Whether I was or wasn't his kid was irrelevant, which it did make him angry. Because she'd already had this huge, elaborate fairy tale wedding put together in her head. She was the one who decided to break it off after that. She packed up and moved out of the city. But he kept sending her money every month to help her take care of me. He showed me screenshots of my mom asking him for money for random things and him sending thousands of dollars. Apparently, he got my number from my mom a couple years ago. Because if he was going to be taking care of me, he at least wanted to have some kind of relationship with me. He was pretty mad about my mom lying to him this whole time, but I pleaded with him not to confront her because I wasn't even supposed to be talking to him clearly. I told him I could not give him my real number because my mom confiscated my phone. We had a super long conversation and I learned a lot about my father too. He has 5 sisters. 5. But only one of them lives near him, and I told him that my life is really like certain things, but I didn't tell him about my health issues yet. I'm very tempted though. He seems nice and sincere, and my mom hasn't stopped hovering over me since she grounded me. Also, I'd like to talk to my dad a bit more before dropping such a bombshell. Update number 2. Hey guys, it's been a month and I finally got my treatment. I caved after having a really bad day with my mother and she had yelled at me, well, because I had not lost any weight in 3 weeks, and then she made me spend an extra hour in the gym. By the time I got home, I was so tired and defeated I could only lay down and cry. When I got on my tablet, I saw that my father texted. I asked him if he had time to talk and we got a voice call. I told him everything, and guys, he was very, very patient, even when I started sobbing. I told him how horrible, and I mean absolutely horribly, Mother has been treating me, about my symptoms and how they weren't getting any better, and she was getting more and more irritated with me because I hit a wall. I told him about the doctor's visits and our fight afterward, and I'm actually still grounded, and at this point I think I'll be grounded forever. He told me he was sorry I was having such a tough time, and if he'd known something earlier, he would have done something. My mom had always told him I was a good kid and doing well in school. She never even suggested something was wrong, and he'd been in constant contact with both her and the fake me that she was pretending to be. At the end of our call, he asked for the name of the clinic I went to and the name of the doctor that I saw, and told me that he'd simply take care of it. Well, just like that, 2 days later I got an email from the doctor confirming an appointment for blood work and an ultrasound. When the day came for an appointment, he came and pulled me out of school himself. While we were in the car, I asked him if he could consider doing a DNA test. He said we could talk about that some other time. Maybe he doesn't want to know or is fine with not knowing, I don't know. But at the doctor's office, he chewed the doctor out a bit and asked her why she did not look into my situation further, since it's so obvious I was being treated poorly. They had a heated back and forth before I stepped in to tell my father it's okay. Like, guys, the doctor isn't social services. Anyways, she ran my test and the ultrasound confirmed PCOS. The doctor said she wanted to get the results of my blood work before she suggested treatment. On the way back, we stopped by for lunch at the deli. I got a pasta salad, and it was the first time I've had something other than lettuce and tomatoes. We decided to keep all this secret from my mom because there's no way telling her, well, we didn't know how she would react. My dad said she had anger issues even back then and would often go absolutely nuclear and do unhinged stuff when she could not get her way. He told me that he was pretty sure the reason she cheated on him was that he told her he wanted to wait until he finished his master's degree before they finally started talking about marriage. Still, she didn't want to wait and would constantly nag him about it until he put his foot down. They had a fight, and he did not see or hear from her for a week after. And he found out about the cheating through a rumor and confronted her about it. God only knew what she'd do if she found out I was doing all this behind her back. So when he got my prescription, he told me to hide it somewhere that she'd never look. Wow, it's been a month since then, and I've been doing so much better. I still have some acne, but it's clearing up pretty well, and my hair issues cleared up too. I still haven't had my period yet, but hey, the doctor said give it some time. The only problem is my mother. She's been so irritable lately, nothing I do is good enough for her. I'm sick of her constantly putting me down and making me feel like an utter failure. I'm sick of never having any time to myself to hang out with my friends or even pick up a hobby. I just feel like her prisoner. Even more so now that I know she's been lying to me about my father. But I'm too scared to confront her, and the only other person who knows I contacted my dad, well, it's my best friend Stacy. I've thought about contacting my aunt, which is my mother's sister, just to see if she could help out. But I'm kind of scared. Update number 3. This is the final update posted by OP. 4 months later. Hey guys, this is just a short update 4 months later, and the long and short of it is that I no longer live with my mom. I didn't leave. She kicked me out. Well, what happened, right? She found out I've been in contact with my dad. When she went to a PTA meeting, one of the people who worked in the school office made an offhanded comment about how nice it was to meet my father, and yeah, she came home in an absolute fit of rage. Yelling, screaming, you name it, demanding to know how I even found my father and what he was doing at my school. I told her everything. How I found him, going to the doctor, getting treatments. I even told her I knew she'd been lying this whole time, and I knew that she cheated on my dad, and that's why he left. I asked her why she led me to believe he was such a horrible person, and that he never cared about me or her. I also asked her if she was so sure I was his kid. Guys, she went mental. She took my laptop, my phone, and just smashed it against the wall. That's when she told me to, well, get out of her house. She called me an ungrateful brat and said having me was the absolute worst mistake of her entire existence, and that after everything she's ever done for me, she couldn't believe I would go behind her back and betray her like this. Honestly, guys, it's no wonder why my father left her. I went and locked myself in the room and barricaded the door with my sofa. While she was screaming and throwing stuff in the other room, I was packing my bags. At that point, I didn't know where I was going to go, and I contacted my aunt, and she and my uncle came to get me. While my aunt tried to calm down my mom, my uncle helped me to get stuff out of the car. My mom had completely trashed the living room, broken lamps, torn down the photos. I knew that she could go crazy when she got mad, but this was absolutely another level. As soon as I got to my aunt and uncle's house, I contacted my dad and told him everything. He had a long conversation with my aunt, and my dad was more than willing to take me in. He has a spare room in his place, but he'd been using it for storage, so it was a bit of a mess. Also, he lived an hour and a half away, so getting to school, yeah, that's going to be a nightmare. So I stayed with my aunt until the year was over. Then I moved in with Dad. He got me a new laptop and a new phone transferred to me to the school near his home. I start there in the fall, and I'm so excited. It sucks that I'll be going to a new school and I'll miss my friends and cousins, but my dad said he can drive me to see them or my extended family some weekends if I do want. But that's not where it ends, guys. I thought I was done with my mother, but she was not done with me. She called CPS on my father. They showed up at the house and absolutely grilled us. It was a good thing I had proof that my mom was horrible to me, though. I had a whole lot of messages where she called me fat and lazy. The officers apologized and left us alone after they were done with the interview, but that was scary. I thought they were going to take me back to my mother. Apart from all that, things have been much better now that I'm living with my dad. The last bit of news I'll share is that my dad and I got a paternity test. And I can say for certain that I'm his kid. When we went out to celebrate, I met one of his sisters, the youngest, and she seemed nice. He said he'll introduce me to more of his family whenever they pass through town. Sometimes I still wonder how my mom's doing. My aunt told me she sold the house and was planning to move away. I'm happy to be away from her, but I hope she gets herself into therapy. Because well, she needs help.
Well, I can really just feel for OP in this story. The entire story, her mother was so toxic to her. I'm just glad how it ended. She was able to go off with her father, and she doesn't even really care what her mom's up to. She did find out from her aunt, though, that her mother sold the house, and she's, who knows where, gone with the wind. I would love to know what you guys thought about this story. What do you want to say to OP? If OP was right there in front of you, maybe some advice or whatnot, what would you tell her? Guys, drop your comments down below. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. On average, about 6% of people who watch this video are subscribed to the channel. So if you do want to support it, that's how you do it. Click that big ol' subscribe button underneath this video. Guys, have a fantastic day. Only a few more days until our giant mother-in-law story's coming out, and I can't wait.